The doors of the Senate House feel heavier than usual this morning. You notice this immediately, the strange way your own body registers danger before your mind has fully articulated exactly what kind of danger you're actually walking toward. You are Cato today. You intend to stand alone before the entire Roman Senate and openly oppose Julius Caesar, a man whose growing power, wealth, and popular support have made him increasingly difficult for anyone in Rome to safely challenge. Most senators have already calculated the political cost of opposing him and decided, quietly, privately, that silence serves their own interests considerably better than honest opposition ever could. You have made a different calculation entirely. Feel the weight of that solitary decision for a moment, walking toward a building full of powerful men who have already, in their own private ways, decided that accommodating Caesar matters more than the principles Rome's republic was originally built upon. You are not naive about what today might cost you. You understand precisely how dangerous Caesar has become, how many resources he commands, how thoroughly he has cultivated popular support among ordinary Roman citizens who see him as their genuine champion against an aristocratic Senate increasingly disconnected from common interests. You understand all of this clearly, and you are walking toward that Senate chamber anyway. Epictetus, not yet born, would one day teach that some things are within our control and some things are not, and that wisdom consists entirely in correctly identifying the difference between them. Whether Caesar eventually achieves the power he clearly seeks remains entirely outside your control, regardless of anything you say or do today. Whether you personally compromise your own principles in order to avoid that outcome's eventual political consequences for yourself, that choice remains this morning completely and entirely your own. You enter the chamber and conversation quiets slightly as senators notice your arrival, several exchanging glances that you recognize immediately as a mixture of respect and genuine anxiety. The particular look reserved for a man about to do something everyone privately admires, but few are actually willing to attempt themselves. You take your seat and you wait, watching the day's business slowly unfold, watching Caesar's allies maneuver carefully through procedural advantages designed to push through legislation that will further consolidate Caesar's growing power. Legislation that most senators present recognize as dangerous to the Republic's traditional balance, yet remain unwilling to openly oppose. Marcus Aurelius would write, generations after this particular morning, that the best revenge is to be unlike the one who performed the injury. You think of this principle now, though its exact words have not yet been written, recognizing that your task today is not personal revenge against Caesar, who has not personally wronged you in any direct sense, but something larger and more important, defending an entire system of government against a single man's accumulating, unchecked ambition. When the moment finally arrives, when the proposal under discussion reaches the point requiring formal debate, you rise to speak. The chamber grows quiet, the particular quiet that settles over a room when everyone present understands that something genuinely consequential is about to happen. You speak clearly, methodically, building your argument the way you have built every argument across your entire career, through careful logic rather than emotional appeal, through precise historical example rather than vague, generalized warning. You explain exactly why the legislation under consideration represents genuine danger to Rome's traditional balance of power, why concentrating this much authority in any single man's hands, regardless of his current popularity or apparent competence, eventually produces exactly the kind of unchecked tyranny the Republic's entire founding structure was specifically designed to prevent. You watch Caesar's expression while you speak, his face carefully composed, betraying nothing beyond polite, attentive interest, though you suspect, correctly, that genuine anger exists somewhere beneath that practiced composure. Caesar rises to respond once you finish his rhetoric, skilled and persuasive, framing his proposed legislation as practical necessity rather than dangerous overreach, appealing to the Senate's genuine desire for stability for solutions to Rome's various pressing problems. Problems that traditional, slower, deliberative processes have struggled to adequately address. You listen carefully, recognizing the genuine skill in his argument, understanding why so many senators find his reasoning persuasive, even seductive, the promise of efficient solutions delivered by a confident, capable leader rather than the slower, messier compromise traditional Republican governance typically requires. You rise again when he finishes because you recognize that persuasive rhetoric, however skillfully delivered, does not actually change the underlying danger contained within concentrated, unchecked power, regardless of how reasonable that power initially appears. Regardless of how genuinely competent the particular man currently wielding it happens to be. You begin speaking again, and this time, your words grow sharper, more direct, naming explicitly the danger you believe Caesar's accumulating power actually represents, refusing the polite, indirect language most senators carefully employ when discussing politically dangerous subjects. The chamber grows tense, several senators shifting uncomfortably in their seats, clearly uncertain whether to feel admiration for your courage or genuine anxiety about the political consequences your direct confrontation might eventually produce, consequences that could potentially extend toward anyone perceived as supporting your position too openly. Caesar's allies attempt to interrupt you several times, procedural objections designed to limit your speaking time to prevent your argument from fully developing before the assembled Senate. You continue regardless, your voice steady, refusing to be rushed or intimidated, understanding that allowing interruption to silence you would represent its own small but significant surrender. A demonstration that pressure alone could successfully limit honest political speech within what was supposed to remain a genuinely deliberative body. This continues for hours. You later recall your extended speech eventually becoming a recognized political tactic, talking through the remaining hours of the session, specifically to prevent a final vote from actually occurring before the Senate's business day concludes. Caesar eventually orders you removed from the chamber, frustrated beyond his usual careful composure, and you allow yourself to be led away, your point already sufficiently made. Your principled opposition now permanently recorded in the historical memory of everyone who witnessed it today. You think of Socrates, centuries before you, who faced his own dangerous political opposition with remarkable calm, understanding that the actual outcome of any single confrontation matters considerably less than the example provided through consistent, principled conduct. You did not prevent Caesar's legislation today. You understand, clearly, walking out of the chamber under guard. His allies will simply reschedule the vote, push it through eventually, regardless of your extended opposition this particular afternoon. But something else happened today that matters considerably more than this single legislative outcome. You recognize with quiet, settled satisfaction, despite the immediate political defeat. You demonstrated, publicly and unmistakably, that opposition to dangerous concentrated power remains genuinely possible, even against a man as formidable and popular as Caesar has become. You proved that silence is never actually mandatory, regardless of how strongly political convenience might suggest otherwise. Other senators watching today understood something important, whether or not they choose to act on it themselves, that genuine principle still exists somewhere within Rome's increasingly compromised political culture. That not everyone has yet decided personal safety matters more than honest public truth. Epictetus would teach that wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. You think of this principle now in an entirely different context, recognizing that political courage requires a similar kind of internal freedom, freedom from desperately needing universal approval, freedom from requiring guaranteed safety before speaking honestly about genuine danger. You possessed that particular freedom today, walking alone into a chamber full of men who had already calculated, privately, that accommodation served their interests considerably better than confrontation. You calculated differently, understanding that your own integrity mattered more to you than whatever temporary political safety silence might have otherwise provided. This is not a guarantee that your principled stand will ultimately succeed. You understand clearly, walking home that evening under the watchful escort assigned to ensure your orderly removal from the Senate grounds. Caesar's power will likely continue growing regardless of today's resistance. History may eventually remember you as the man who tried valiantly and failed, rather than the man who successfully prevented tyranny from ultimately taking hold. But you understand something else tonight, something that matters considerably more to you than guaranteed success ever could. You remain genuinely yourself today, in front of the most powerful man in Rome, despite every practical reason available to choose comfortable silence instead. That choice, regardless of its ultimate political outcome, belongs entirely and permanently to you. A choice Caesar's eventual victory, however complete it eventually becomes, can never actually retroactively undo. If you're listening to this and currently facing your own moment requiring difficult, lonely opposition, some situation where speaking honestly feels considerably more dangerous than comfortable silence, know that Cato once walked alone into exactly this kind of impossible confrontation, understanding clearly that he would likely lose and choosing genuine integrity anyway. This is why Severus Stoic exists, to bring you these difficult, uncompromising chapters of Stoic history, honest about exactly what principled opposition genuinely costs, rather than pretending courage is somehow easy or consequence-free. If this story reached something true in you, subscribe to Severus Stoic so more of these journeys continue finding their way to you exactly when you need them most. Leave a comment below and tell me about a time you chose to speak honestly despite genuine risk, and what that particular choice ultimately taught you about your own character. Your comments help this channel grow, and they help other people recognize they are not alone in choosing difficult, principled honesty over easier, safer silence. Cato walked alone into Rome's Senate chamber, opposed the most powerful man in the entire Republic, and lost the immediate political battle completely. Remember this the next time you face your own difficult choice between safety and honesty. You cannot always control whether your principled stand ultimately succeeds. You can always control whether you remain genuinely yourself while making it.